I hope they heard that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of We Need to Talk. I'm your host, Devon, and today we've got some repeat offenders joining us for, I think, what's going to be a pretty lively and fun conversation. So, sitting next to me is Brad Polumbo from Young Voices.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Good to see ya. Next to Brad is, I think, probably my most favorite guest. Sorry, Tim.
What?
And Brad. Misha. And Misha is the editor of the DC Afro newspaper.
You're my favorite host, Devon.
Thank you. We've got each other's backs.
All the way.
And then next to Misha is Tim Young, host of the No Things Considered podcast.
My contract that you're to say that I'm your favorite guest. And also, why are we seated like a couple here?
Yeah.
We're seated like right next to each other.
I like it.
You're in my bubble.
I'm sorry.
You're
really
invading your
appreciate it.
personal space. Well, that kind of goes well with today's topic. I think the news has been pretty
You
quiet.
bring up a really good point about how people really are shifting in their tolerance toward the other side. You know, when I grew up, my dad was a Republican, my mom was a Democrat. That was a normal thing that people did, you know. Whether you voted for George Bush or John Kerry wasn't a deal breaker if you went on a first date with someone. But now I really think it is. I can't tell you how many times, especially coming at it from the perspective of a gay conservative, people in the LGBT community or the far left community will just anyone who has conservative or libertarian or any type of that affiliation, they're totally closed off to it. And I think it's sad because we learn the most from people we disagree with.
I don't think it's sad at all. If somebody's intolerant of my political views, I don't want to be around them at all. And as a friend or dating them, I think, I'm glad that they're self-selecting themselves out of the picture when that happens.
But I think it's sad that they're so close-minded like that. I think I would like to see a different world than that. I think we would all agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I have dated outside.
It's a little unfair to blame one person for an entire country's behavior.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I would blame Donald Trump. I almost view him as more of a symptom than a cause. I think the real cause is the hyperpolarization of our society, right, where people are put into their echo chambers, they only associate with people that agree with them, and then we see this repeating cycle where people become more and more extreme because they don't get exposure to the other side. I think the biggest things causing that are the state of our media and also the way that social media allows you to select what you see and don't really leads, especially among younger generations, to complete echo chambers online.
Yeah, I would definitely agree about the fact that part of the issue is that people only look and read news and take in news that they care about.
Rhetoric isn't divisive at times,
Yeah.
whether it's saying lock her up, or build the wall. That's not exactly building bridges to the other side. It is very much an us versus them mentality that he puts out in his rhetoric sometimes.
Sure. Hold on, I can barely see Omar over the love station. And I don't see that same level of, I think, almost
Tolerance.
inherent. Yeah, that's it. I don't see that same level of disdain for the other side coming from conservatives.
Yeah, I think the difference there is that on the left, there's a tendency for anyone who disagrees with you is some type of bigot. They're either a sexist, a racist, homophobe, right? Those are the type of tags that shut down conversations. And obviously there are occasions where they're appropriate,
Sure.
but there's also 10 times as many times where they're not and they're just thrown out there. That shuts down conversations. The right doesn't do as much of that to the left. They do a little bit, right? Everyone's a socialist, everyone's this, everyone's that, but not as much. And I think that's why you see the trend that you're observing. Where it's harder to talk to people on the left.
Yeah, I mean, again, so I deal with this all the time, and I feel like it sort of is the exact opposite. But I think the name-calling piece that Tim brought up is totally correct. But I don't know. I mean, so again, I'm moderate and normally don't get in these.
Because of your political choice.
Sure, so I have some good stories, so I'll just jump in. So the first time I went on Fox News, I lost 2 close friends. Just instantly, that did it for them. Bye. At college, that just dropped me like that. And then
Well, hold on. So what was your response to that? Because that's heartbreaking.
My response to that was, you weren't ever my friend then, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're that close-minded that someone goes on, it's not like I went on there and said crazy stuff or anything.
Right.
So that was my response, like one less friend I don't need. But it's sad to see that that's where we're at, and that's carried over into the dating scene, especially in the LGBT community. I'm at the point where I advertise it now because I'm like, get it out of the way. I put conservative in the bio because otherwise you get to know someone, they ask you what you do for work, and then all of a sudden their attitude toward you just shifts dramatically, just changes, and then it just shuts down, and it's happened dozens of times.
Oh.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Yeah. I just think we need to start listening to
But I
people
think
more.
that ties into the Trump derangement syndrome that we were discussing before the show.
Yeah.
It is real, it does exist, and it's on both sides. You know, people on the far left see everything Trump does as bad just because it's Trump, and if it's George Bush, if it was George Bush, they might have been like, oh, I actually like that, right?
And if it had been Obama, they would have been like,
they would have loved it.
praising, you know, they would have made a gold statue in his honor.
But then people on the right have Trump derangement syndrome as well, right? There's some people who can see no fault, right?
Sure.
Some people who will start with one position and then Trump switches, so they just switch, right? So I think we see both sides really coming down with Trump derangement syndrome to the point where Nancy Pelosi calls the repeal of net neutrality Armageddon.
And
right.
nothing happened.
Yeah,
Right?
and then
that
nothing.
day, it was like Y2K, you know, the
Yeah.
world's going to end, and then nothing happened. So this is really a question for you, Brad. And one of the first, I think my first ever TV appearance was with the Log Cabin Republicans, who are a conservative gay group, or LGBT community. And one of the things that we talked about, and this is always hard for me to articulate this question, but in your experience as a conservative who's also gay, do you think, has it in your experience been harder to talk to your conservative friends and acknowledge that you're gay versus talking to your gay friends and say, well, I'm conservative?
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I think it's actually ironic because so many people would assume the answer is one way, but it's the opposite. Especially among young conservatives, the open-mindedness towards homosexuality is big. I remember Dave Rubin was on stage at the Turning Point USA conference last night or the night before or something, and he announced to this crowd of young, college-age, high school, teenager conservatives, I'm gay, I'm married. You guys don't care about that, right? And they all cheered,
Yeah.
right? So it's way easier among the modern conservative movement to be gay than it is in the modern gay movement to be conservative. Way easier.
And I think that's sad. I mean, it's sad that you would be discriminated against either way, but you would think that this community, the LGBT community that is supposed to be so welcoming and so accepting of people for a multitude of reasons, I think that you're immediately an outsider because of one viewpoint.
It's been hijacked by the political left. That's the problem. The LGBT movement at pride rallies, they ban pro-Trump gay groups, right? They ban floats by pro-Trump gay groups, and then they have like Antifa signs at a pride rally that has nothing to do with that. So the problem is that the LGBT movement, in parts, the political part of it, has been hijacked by the left. And so it's not open-minded, which is sad.
Yeah, I mean,
And because I'm not voting and treating it like an issue, therefore I'm the enemy.
Well, I'll make this prediction right now. The first gay president will be a Republican. I call it right now. It'll be Peter Thiel. It'll be a future Peter Thiel, someone like that. Because if it will just be a non-issue. Right?
Yeah.
It will be someone will go win the Republican nomination who happens to be gay. Whereas on the left, if it happens, it'll become a big identity politics movement, and there'll be a backlash, and we'll see the same thing that happened to Hillary Clinton, unfortunately. So I think that I'm making that prediction
She
right
could have been
now.
the first gay president.
Okay.
I meant her being a
Oh my
woman.
God! We have to wrap.
I meant her being a woman.
July 26th, Brad made this.
Yeah, this prediction. The
302.
first LGBT president is also going to be a conservative or a Republican on the Republican ticket.
Yep,
So
I'm
we'll
calling
see.
it now.
We'll see if we can predict the future. Stay tuned for next week, same place, same time. Thanks, guys.